On the radar antenna of the lunar module there was a gyroscope on each axis of the antenna in order to measure the angles of the antenna shaft and run. In fact, instead of a single pair of gyroscopes, 2 pairs of gyroscopes were used, so that it was possible to make comparisons between the measured angles and eliminate the gyroscopes which would be found as giving incorrect values. The principle was to compare the measured values of 3 gyroscopes. If a gyroscope was giving a value different from the values of the 2 other gyroscopes, the pair that it was belonging to was not used. We are going to see why this makes no sense. Let's use the group of 3 gyroscopes which has been framed. The middle one gives a value different from the 2 other ones, but it is not because it does not work, it is because it does not measure the same angle as the 2 other ones. The 2 other gyroscopes measure a shaft angle while this one measures a run angle. So it is normal that it does not give the same value as the 2 other ones. It does not mean it does not work. So according to their logic, the pair of gyroscopes that this gyroscope belongs to is eliminated. It will not be used for measuring the angles of the antenna. Now let's use the group of 3 gyroscopes which has been framed on this new example. The middle one does not give the same value as the 2 other ones, but it is not because it does not work, it is because it does not measure the same angle as the 2 other ones. It measures a shaft, while the 2 other ones measure a run. So it is normal that it does not give the same value as the 2 other ones. It does not mean it does not work. So according to their logic, the pair of gyroscopes that this gyroscope belongs to will not be used to measure the angles. This clearly shows that this logic to determine which pair of gyroscopes is to be used is completely absurd. In order to determine which gyroscopes give a correct value and which don't, a minimum of 3 pairs of gyroscopes must be used. We first compare the measured values of the gyroscopes which measure the shaft angle. As these gyroscopes all measure the same angle, the shaft, if a gyroscope gives a value different from the 2 other ones, this time it will really mean that it is deficient, for it measures the same angle as the 2 other ones. It means that for measuring the shaft, any of the 2 other gyroscopes can be used, but not the one which gives a value different from the 2 other ones. Now we have something coherent. We make a comparison which makes sense, for we compare gyroscopes which measure the same angle. Likewise, in order to determine which gyroscope we can use to measure the run, we compare the measured values of the gyroscopes which measure the run angle. As these gyroscopes all measure the same angle, the run, if a gyroscope gives a value different from the 2 other ones, it will really mean that it is deficient, for it measures the same angle as the 2 other ones. It means that for measuring the run, any of the 2 other gyroscopes can be used, but not the one which gives a value different from the 2 other ones. Once again, we have something coherent. We make a comparison which makes sense, for we compare gyroscopes which measure the same angle. The previous examples show that in order to determine which gyroscopes can be used to measure the angles of the antenna, 2 pairs of gyroscopes are not enough. 3 pairs of gyroscopes are necessary. If an observer sees the antenna dishes in profile when these dishes are not turned relatively to him, he will fully see the 2 dishes on his side, and not the 2 other dishes which are on the opposite side. But, if the antenna dishes are turned relatively to him, the lower dish on his side will partially hide the upper dish on his side, and the lower dish which is on the other side will also be partially visible. This schema shows the command module under 2 different perspectives with the indication of the antennas deployed and stowed. On the left part of the schema, we can distinctly fully see the 2 dishes which are on our side, and not at all the 2 other dishes which are on the opposite side. It means that the dishes would not be seen turned. So, logically the dishes should be aligned with the z-axis, so that they would not be seen turned on the other view. But it is not at all the case like we can see on the other part of the schema. The direction of the antennas is turned relatively to the z-axis of an angle of 37.75 degrees. It means that on the first part of the schema, the dishes should be seen turned relatively to the reference system of the command module, and therefore they should not be seen this way, with the two dishes on our side fully visible, and not the two other ones. But this way, with the lower dish on our side partially hiding the upper dish, and the lower dish of the opposite side also partially visible. This is the schema of the high-gain antenna of the command module. We can see that on the two dishes of the left there is a part circled in orange for the lower dish and in red for the upper dish, which is not visible. For the lower dish, the excuse might be that the vertical support is partially hiding it, but for the upper dish there is no possible excuse, for the vertical support stops before this dish, and it can't be hidden by the dish on the right either. So for the upper left dish, there clearly is a part which is missing, which has been colored in red. And without this missing part, this dish cannot normally work. And since the dishes cannot be oriented individually, and are globally oriented with the same orientation, it would have been more efficient to replace them with a single bigger dish which occupies the same surface as the four dishes altogether. The reception and emission would have been better. This schema shows two views of the recovery antenna. But where are in the view of the right the wires which appear in the view of the left, and which have been circled in red on this view?